Hey everyone, welcome back to Eyes on the Ball. This is episode 11. If you read the description of last week's or last video that I uploaded, I recorded that video on July 20th, I think to be exact. And so I know I uploaded it 2 months later, and I apologize greatly. I keep apologizing and keep doing the same mistakes. I apologize greatly again. But I've kind of just learned to edit it myself. It's not too hard. It's not really too difficult, to be honest. I do want to get an overlay at least to make this look a little bit cleaner. You guys are still going to see my room, but at least have some sort of border and stuff like that. I know the lighting kind of stinks. And I have a little, not a little lamp. I bought this. I have a lamp here, or a studio light. Not really studio light, but it's a light, right? That I bought for this purpose of having a decent lighting. But I have to kind of play around with it more and see what type of lighting would look good. I know this lighting is it makes the room, and with the quality of my face cam, it looks super. It's weird. It looks grained out and stuff like that. So I'll try to see what I can do about it after in my next video, and I'll try to have the overlay for this one. I probably will have it on this one. If I do, I'll be happy. I'll be proud of myself. But if not this one, definitely the next one. But again, this is episode 11. Not too much has happened, honestly. There's been some crazy stuff. Like the whole Kawhi Leonard thing, which is insane. Basically, what I'm assuming is, hold on, sorry, I apologize. Basically the thing is he kind of got paid under the table, essentially. I think that's what they're kind of implying. He got paid under the table, and it was a hefty amount of the money, of his contract money or salary, I guess. But now it's becoming this thing where the Clippers owner didn't know about it, which is crazy as fuck if true. Even though the Clippers team kind of said that they that the allegations were false, so I don't know what's going on with that, to be honest. I can't imagine what that entailed for the team. People were saying the last time they did it, I think they suspended the player for a whole bunch of games. I don't know if they stopped the team from playing. Some crazy shit happened, I think, last time this happened in the NBA. I know people were talking about it, but I forgot, honestly. But I saw some tweets circulating, and I don't know if this is true or not, that if it is true, Shea would go back to the Clippers. I think that's fake as fuck. I have no idea how that would make sense. Because it wouldn't only be Shea. It would be damn near every player that was traded to the Clippers, I'd assume, after Kawhi's contract, I guess. So I have no clue if that's true or not. And supposedly it would rescind their championship, which I don't think would be fucking true. I don't think that's truthful either. I don't know if it actually is or not. It's just tweets that I've seen that come from accounts that look official, but you don't really know. But yeah, that was kind of crazy. We still don't have an answer for what's gonna happen for that. Not too many crazy trades. We saw some signings happen. Thanasis Antetokounmpo re-signed with the Bucks, which is basically confirming that Giannis is gonna stay with the Bucks, at least start of the season. We don't know if he's gonna leave by the trade deadline or anything like that. It could happen. And I feel honestly, I don't see that team competing or getting at least getting far this season. And not because I know the Eastern Conference is it's weak right now because Tatum because Tatum's injured, and then Hallie's also injured. So I understand that sentiment. The East looks wide open right now. I don't know if it does anymore. Again, the Desmond Bain trade makes the Magic look like they're gonna be a fucking top 3 seed, but who knows comes playoff time. The Cavs are still going to be a good team. Like they're going to be a great regular season team. They might not have a kryptonite to go against in the playoffs when it comes. What other team? Again, the Bucks are still going to be a great team because they have Giannis. I feel like, I think this past season kind of not erased Giannis's legacy, but I think people are kind of like not, and I don't want to say underrating either. Like I personally think he's top 3, and I think he's so dominant as a force, or maybe not top 3. I think top 5 at minimum. He might be top 3 though. I guess I think it's SGA and Jokic. You know, you could switch them 1 or 2, whatever. And then I think third is Giannis or Luka. But I feel like it gotta be Giannis, right? Anyways, so again, like he's such a dominant player, and I feel like the Bucks, the failure of the Bucks of last season, again, like with Dame being on the team and it not working out, I think it caused some people to kind of shy away from what Giannis, or at least the Bucks, and shy away from Giannis in return. And I think that's affecting people's kind of perception on Giannis. I think Giannis is a fucking beast. He's a fucking monster. I think he's going to be great for the next season. Again, it's just roster construction, right? Like, can this team be good with him just carrying, which he will be doing? Like, he's going to put the team on his back and just will his way to victories because he's just that dominant as a player, as a scorer, right? Triple-double freak, damn near. But yeah, I think the Bucks can go far, at least have a good record in the postseason. I mean, the regular season. Postseason, I just don't know. I don't see them being too successful unless, you know, Giannis truly becomes like number fucking 1. Like he just unlocks a new level to his game somehow, and makes it farther. So and so because of that, I just don't think they'll make it far. And I think after that, he probably will request a trade, to be honest. Again, like unless like, you know, a Robin comes out of nowhere and like, you know what, fuck it, I want to go play with Giannis, like by the trade deadline or before the trade deadline. Then I just don't see them. I don't see them going far, and I kind of see the Bucks or Giannis separating from the Bucks, which would suck, because I would love for him to be like a one team his whole career kind of player. Because I think those are just like so poetic and just raw. But I don't know if it'll. I don't know. Yeah. Other than that, like nothing else too memorable. As a Grizzlies fan, I do know that we signed PJ Hall during the summer league. I don't know if I mentioned that last episode. And we also signed Olivier. We signed it was a dude who played for the Mavericks, a wing, 6'8" wing who plays for Mavericks. He was very athletic, the good lanky dude, and so I'm not mad at the signing. I actually kind of like it. I think I remember him torching the fuck out of us one game too, like in the first half of the season. I think he had a fucking great game against us, but I could be wrong. But it's cool that we signed him. Like again, like a signing longer players, pause. Athletic players. Athletic players is what we need, right? Again, you know, we need a guy who can rim run, because John Morant will make use of that, right? But anyways, that was a pretty good signing in my opinion. But that's really all that has happened in the basketball world. Season starts in damn near 49 days. Cannot fucking wait. I've been fiending for basketball, man. NFL started yesterday, so that was cool. As soon as I started watching the game, fucking rain delay, which sucks. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad sports are coming back, man. You know, best season on the way. I love the autumn. I love the fall. Amazing season. Sports, cold. You could throw a fit on. Shit fire. But enough of the yap. We're not here to talk about fucking bullshit. We're here to talk about basketball. So, I had a concept for a episode, and this is a concept that I had for a while. when we started the podcast, honestly, that we were going to talk about during the summer, but that did not work out. But the concept is basically, or discussion, the topic of discussion today, is what separates a good team from a contending team. I think that's a very vague question, but I think the vagueness of the question makes it a good question because there's so many answers for it that are valid. There's a lot of answers to the question that truly can be correct, right? It can be very simple answers, it could be very complex answers, very niche answers, but all of them are. There's a certain level of truthfulness to every answer, because to be a contending team, it's not easy, right? Like you can get to the playoffs, but can you really win a championship? Who knows, right? A bunch of teams the past few seasons, they make it to the the bubble, or they're not the bubble, the play-in. They hover around that 4 to 5 or 4 to 6 seed where they're secure in the playoffs. But then they get dropped out in the first round or the second round, but they don't really get far, right? So I want to talk about what makes a good team a contender. Good team being a team that kind of either makes it to the playoffs a lot, or they're a very great regular season, but they don't show it too much in the postseason, or any mix of those two kind of combinations. So my number one thing, in my opinion, or at least the first answer I came up with, I don't think there's truly a number one thing, because I think any answer is kind of important. I think some should be valued more than others. Certain aspects of the game should be valued more than others. But my first answer, and I think it's kind of important, is consistency / identity. Being a consistent team is hard. Being a team that consistently does what they do is hard. TJ McConnell. I think that's completely wrong. But TJ McConnell said in his podcast with the big man of the three, I think, that playing hard is genuinely a skill. Why is it a skill? Because nobody wants to do it. If it was that easy, then everybody would do it. But it's hard, right? And I think being consistent is one of those things. It's hard to be consistent, right? It's hard to play good against bad teams and play good against good teams. It's hard to be great defensively against good teams, and it's hard to be great defensively against bad teams sometimes, right? Not really. They have like a crazy fucking scorer or whatever, right? But there's a level of consistency that teams don't have, and I think that is what separates them from being contending teams. The one thing I would say is, like, a team that I think you can kind of point at this from a team and a player perspective, right? I think one, like, peak kind of version of what it looks like to be consistent and have your identity is OKC. Again, they were known as a defensive fucking powerhouse, a jail cell kind of faction, right, for the entire season, and they were that same exact thing in the playoffs, right? That's identity and consistency. And then you have their main player, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who literally is Mr. Consistency Man. Like, the guy is just, he drops 30 no matter what. Bad teams, good teams, he's gonna drop 30 because he worked on his game so much, and he's polished his game so well, and so being that consistent it just makes the game easier, not only for you as an individual, but for your team, right? Because your team doesn't have to think about, and especially OKC in general, with how that team is kind of constructed, which is what I'll get into later. But that team in general, right? It's very much, Shay, we're gonna give it the ball, get to work. You're gonna be tired on the defensive end, but you're gonna have enough stamina to not be bad defensively, right? And again, he's 6'6". He's not a cone, right? He's not a cone at all. Like he might not be the best defender on that team, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because again, the team is filled with defensive hounds, right? But anyways, again, Shea's gonna control the O. Everybody else on the team is gonna put their heart out on defense, right? Because they have the stamina to it. They don't really have to worry too much about playing offense, because they know that this guy on the other side is gonna be fucking torching people, right? And again, like, that's plays into the role of, or plays into the aspect of consistency, being consistently good. And again, Shea being consistent is one of the reasons why they can play like that, right? If he was an inconsistent scorer, but he can score, have really high scoring peaks, teams are going to be a little bit more lenient or lax in terms of playing defense on you. And what does that do? It makes it harder for other players on your squad to get a better chance if they're not necessarily as great, right? You know, again, with the Nuggets, for example, right? Jokic, OKC had threw everything at Jokic. They were triple teaming him. They had Caruso on him, and what does that do, right? Again, Jokic is still a great playmaker, so he's still able to utilize the players around him to their best absolute most, and play with their skills. But you know, when you have so many players guarding, the risk of having so many players guard one guy is that you have other players open, right? And having other players open is kind of not the best thing, especially in the playoff setting, right? They're either going to shoot, they're going to have an easier time to score, you know, the more open they are, right? That's just obvious, right? So, but again, with OKC, it's like, again, they're such a great defensive team where they're able to recover really fast, or they're able to switch all the time and not have a bad kind of how do I say this? Kind of like an odd man out when they switch, right? Like, nobody on that team is somebody you want to target, right? Like, you can target Shea, but he's not a bad defender by any means, right? And again, everybody on that team can recover so well because they have the endurance and agility to do so, that, you know, if you kind of, you know, get an inch on Shea and you're able to get to the rim, you're gonna meet Shet, or you're gonna meet Lou Dort, or you're gonna meet J-Dub. You know, somebody else is gonna be there to lock you down, right? Because again, that team has identity. That team has a very strong defensive identity. And you can say the same thing with the Cavs, right? The Cavs or you know what? I'll say the Pacers, because the Pacers, again, offensively, defensively, they're not necessarily the best team. Like, you know, not even from a stat standpoint, but you can just watch them and you know they're not a great defensive team. Not like that they're bad at all, because again, Nembhard and Nesmith were great individual defenders and even team defenders, right? But and Halliburton is low key a very underrated team defender as well. But like, team overall, they're not great defensively, right? And so, but what they are really good at is offense, right? Again, one of the best offenses in the playoffs and in the league in general. I think it was them and the Cavs are 1 and 2. I'm pretty sure, at least in the playoffs. I don't know about regular season. I think Grizzlies were actually the third or maybe the second in the regular season, I think, in terms of offensive rating. But yeah, again, they have such a great offense, right? The whole like kind of storyline of the finals was offense versus defense, right? Again, number one offense versus number one defense. And again, Pacers played really well in that role of offense in their identity. They're able to play really great and are secure in that offensive identity. Everybody, again, I think I said it before, right? Everybody is a playmaker on that team, damn near. Or at least it looks like it. Why? Because they're so smart with the ball in their hands. They play in their roles. They don't do too much. And they just keep on playing the basketball that they are aware of. Again, consistency / identity, right? And I think, you know, those are good examples. And then there's also bad examples, right? There's players who are just not consistent and it hurts the team. I think Jalen Green for the Rockets is a good example, right? He had one game against the Warriors where he dropped like 40 points. And then I think he had like 8 points after. 8 points after, like, in damn near every other game. Less than 10 for sure. But it's just like, You can't have such a inconsistent scoring scope in the playoffs, especially, right? Like, you can't do that. And if you are, you at least have to have some sort of playmaking ability so that you can kind of balance out the negatives, or at least be smart with the ball in your hand, so that the team can still play as a team, right? I think the Rockets had a great defensive identity as well. Everybody on that team is great defensively. You had Men Thompson, you had Jabari Smith Jr., even Aaron Holiday off the bench. I know Steven Adams was a pretty good defender. Who else? I don't know. Dylan Brooks, of course. He may not actually be a great defender, but he's gonna bring that energy, right? And he's gonna get in your face. He's gonna be physical, and that's what you want in a defender, right? It's amazing. So yeah, and I don't know if Jalen Green is a great defender. He certainly has a size to him to be disruptive, I would say, in terms of, like, if you're playing against smaller guards or guards his size, whatever. But again, like, that team had a great defensive identity. But again, offense is what lacked for them, right? They didn't have a consistent offense, right? They ran the ball through either Jalen Green or Amen Thompson. And Amen Thompson, as people are kind of getting to that point where they're overrating him. I don't know how I feel about it. I think people, and again, I'll really talk about this in the next kind of, I guess, aspect of the game that I think matters, or an aspect of the game that teams need to get to that point and cross that finish line, or whatever. But Amen Thompson, again, like, he's not that great of a scorer yet, right? Again, he's a freak fucking athlete, defensively fucking insane. I think he was already an all NBA defensive team, and he has some DPOY votes as well. So like, he obviously is a great defender, right? But he's not the best at offense, right? They ran him as a point guard, and so he looked very great in terms of he definitely shows or has flashes of being a great passer. He has the ability to make quick passes and make very creative passes, using his athleticism to kind of distract big men in the paint, and then doing fakes, or doing kind of creative acrobatic fakes in the air and then passing out kind of thing. So I think he's gonna be a great player. Like, there's no way he's gonna be ass, right? Like, he just can't be, like, and you can tell he's not that selfish, right? He's not a selfish player. Like, he wants the team to win, and that's what you want, right? In a player. But again, running the ball through him, he's not really a great scorer yet. And then you have Jalen Green, who's an inconsistent scorer, and then you have Dylan Brooks, who has a green light kind of sometimes, but doesn't really take the best shots and isn't the best scorer anyways, right? So you had Fred VanVleet, who was the playmaker of the team, who was the only honestly solid guy in terms of offense on that team, right? And then Sengun, of course, too. But again, like, other than those two players, it's like nobody else was really doing anything. So in the playoffs, especially, and that's what killed that team. Again, they had their identity, but they didn't really have consistency, right? I can trying to think of another team. I mean, if we want to talk about a team that I'm well versed with, the Grizzlies did not have an identity at all the entire season. At all. We had nothing. At first, in the first half of the season, I think a lot of NBA analytics and just basketball nerds in general, not a diss, nerd out, right? nerd out, I guess. But a lot of people kind of saw what we had of our real offense, and they kind of really liked it. And people were thinking, like, okay, this is an identity forming. I think it culminated into an identity, right? And I think people enjoyed seeing it because we had this cool offense that nobody else really had, right? But it stopped working. It did not work well against good teams, and so because of that, there was inconsistency because we did not play good against good teams, and then which caused our identity to kind of fall apart, right? And what does that do? That's a horrible mix, right? We got swept in the playoffs again. Yes, John Morant got injured in Game 3, but we still shouldn't have lost. But we still shouldn't have lost that game because we're up 30, right? Game 4, obviously the game was kind of close, but again, it's like, we got swept, right? And again, the identity problem was a thing the entire season. Like, we didn't have we didn't have any identity to our game. We kind of just did whatever, right? Very spontaneous, very not authentic, not well thought. It was just kind of like we just did whatever happened in the moment, right? And so that was a huge failure of a season for us. And I think, again, consistency / identity is one of the reasons why. Like, we just did not have an identity. We weren't the grit and grind kind of team. We weren't like the young and hungry team that we were a couple years back. We're kind of like, I don't want to say identity crisis, but damn near, again, we had youngins on the team and we had old people on the team. And the old people still weren't even old, right? Like, the players that we really had were at least experienced with Ja, Bane, Santi, and Jaren, right? Kennard, I guess, too, but we know how Kennard, we're not even fucking talk about Kennard, right? But again, like, we brought in a lot of young guys for a team that's supposed to be contending, because our core is at that age to be contending, but we just were not, right? And again, I think that was a big issue, which leads me to my next point. Roster construction. Now, this is kind of vague, and it's vague on purpose because it doesn't necessarily have to be one-to-one kind of definition of roster construction, right? But I think there's a level of kind of team creation and team additions and subtractions for players that really matter to how better a team could be, right? Like, we saw the Cavs, right? They kind of stayed the same from the team that they had last season, but they added Kenny Atkinson, and they were like a fucking top. They're like it was them and OKC, right? At the top of the peak in their respective conferences, right? And that was a minor change, but it worked really well. The Pistons, for example, they brought in JB Bickerstaff, huge difference, right? I know they also had Jalen Duren as well, even though I'm pretty sure he played last season too. But again, they have Bickerstaff, they had Malik Beasley. These are additions to the teams that make them really good. Again, maybe they're not contenders, right? But these are additions to the team that change them a lot, drastically. OKC, biggest example, dickheads. If they didn't fucking get Caruso, if they didn't get fucking Caruso and they still had Giddey on the team, they're not going anywhere. The fact that they were able to get Caruso, who was one of their best defenders and one of their best playoff performers, he was damn near the most consistent one under Shea. That dude, again, and if you wanna look up his stats, by all means, please do it. The motherfucker sucked from 3-point the regular season, and oh my fucking god, he was their best shooter damn near in the playoffs. Every single series in that playoff run, Caruso was probably their best shooter, if not their best, then the second best. He was a top 2 shooter the entire time, and that's like, that's an immediate upgrade from Giddey. And it's not because Giddey's a bad player, but it's a player who is a role player, knows their role, is not going to overstep in their role, and exceeds really well when you need them to, right? And that's exactly what Caruso was. He did everything you needed him to do and more. And then not only that, but they add iHeart, right? It gives the team some more muscle, some more length for that 5 position, and that's what they really struggled with against the Mavericks last year, right? Lively was just too much for Shed. This too much for Shed, literally, right? But yeah, like, that's like additions to the team that went from, okay, this team is really good, they can make it deep, they made it to the playoffs and they're good, but we want the team to be a contender, so they get Caruso and iHeart, and now they're here, right? They're at the fucking peak, right? And that's great roster construction, right? Again, it's players who know their role, they don't overstep, and they do what they do really, really well, and they allow the core to play how they play, right? The Clippers, I think, are a great team to look at too, right? Again, I think everybody on that team can play, right? Everybody on that team is great, and they look very, very good on paper. Again, they lost against the Nuggets in Game 7, but it was a Game 7, first of all, against the Nuggets, who were like the second best team in the West, easily. And if honestly there were certain games, if not for the Nuggets, I think the Clippers go way farther, because they're just a great team on paper, right? They have the ball handlers, they have the scorers, they have the bigs, they have the wings who can shoot and score. So it's like, it's a great team. It's a very good team, a great constructed team. Who else? I think, like, for now, oh, Atlanta Hawks right now, again, like, they made drastic changes to their team. Added Porzingis, added Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, those are great additions to that team. Again, and they still have Trae Young. They have Zachary Richardson, Jalen Johnson. I don't know how to fucking pronounce his name, but they have the one center who's fucking great too. But again, that's great team construction, right? The team looks good on paper, and I think they're gonna be great when it comes to actual production time too. Because again, those are players who know their role. They're not gonna overstep. We've seen them win before. There's experience on that team, and so yeah, I think it's gonna be a great fucking team to watch. Obviously, again, the Rockets. I think the Rockets are also a great example. They got rid of their inconsistent scorer and fucking upgraded him for like the most consistent scorer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, fuck. Like, if we're talking about direct upgrades, I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. And again, no hate to Jalen Green. I don't think he's a great player anyways. But fucking hell. If you can get KD on your team, you get KD, right? And especially for that type of team, like, you have to get KD. You have to. You have to. Again, KD is a direct fucking upgrade on that team. And they got him. And not only that, but they also got, Capella, I'm pretty sure too, which is like, fuck off. This, again, a great addition to the team, but for no fucking reason, honestly. Well, I don't say no reason. It's a great addition to the team regardless. And again, backup depth is really fucking good, right? A great rebounder next to Steven Adams and Şengün, right? And not only that too, but they have Dorian Finney-Smith too. So it's like, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, that's a great team. And not only that, but we saw that team perform pretty decent last season. We knew what they needed, and they got what they needed this season. Again, it could be the OKC thing part 2, right? Again, the team knew OKC knew what they needed. They got what they needed, and they won. Now Rockets knew what they needed, got what they needed. Will they win? Maybe. I'm not gonna say it's not possible. Right? Again, after OKC winning an outlier team like that, anything's fucking possible. Not that OKC winning was crazy, but it's definitely, they broke history, right? They made history. Again, like a young team winning like that, doesn't happen often, right? But they won. But yeah. And yeah, so roster construction really matters, right? Again, if we look at the failures of the big three, right? The big three just did not work. It just does not work. Having a big three and just filling it out, it just doesn't work. It's not a great scheme or blueprint to build around, right? Back when the Lakers got Russ, and it was Braun, him, and AD, and then the Nets got KD, Harden, and Kyrie, right? Like, everybody was like, you know what, the Sims to the finals, and then none of them even getting there, right? I think they were both they both didn't make it past the second round, right? So, and again, I'm glad we got away from that, because I was tired of it, honestly. Just watching like 3 players hoop in the middle, and then the rest, just being like fucking shunned to the side. It was just, again, it's not great basketball. There's no synergy when it's like that. But what I will say, for the Lakers, it was way worse than the Nets. I honestly believe that if the Nets stayed together, That would have been a team that could have won. I think that team could have been a team that could have continued what the idea or the concept of big threes are supposed to do or supposed to mean, right? Like again, like the only one that really worked was like Braun with him, D Wade and Bosh. But even then, like I'm not in no disrespect to Bosh as well either, of course, right? But there's a gap between those two and Bosh. And again, I'm not saying it's huge or whatever, right? But if you compare it to a squad that is like KD, Kyrie, Harden, it's like again, and again, I'm not comparing one to one, but we know what KD, Harden, and Kyrie are, right? We know they're all three MVP level players, right? You can say what you want about Kyrie. I still think he is. He has the peak to be able to. He has a his peak is an MVP level player, and I think he. Honestly, I'm not saying that he could be one, right? But I think, again, his peak is that, right? Like he can't play like one for sure, right? And we've seen him do it still, right? We can see him do that still. But again, I think that team would have been the team to do it if they had to stay together and stuff like that. But yeah, I think roster construction matters, right? And I think that's why. And I think I said it last episode. I don't remember exactly, but I think that's why we're seeing all the teams now understanding that it's not just about a big three anymore, right? It's about having a team it's about not having the worst player in the matchup, right? You want your team to be generally good all along. Obviously, it can still be top heavy, but you don't want your bottom to be horrible, right? You don't want it to be horrible. You don't want your worst player to be worse than their worst player. But you still kind of want your best player to be better than their best player too, regardless, right? And again, like the Grizzlies, again, I'm talking about them a lot because I'm much more informed about them. Not to say I'm not going to talk about other teams and their roster construction, but I think it makes more sense to talk about things that I'm more informed on. Not to sound biased, but to give better examples. But the Grizzlies, again, like we traded away Desmond Bane, got a whole lot of first round picks. We got KCP, a player who has won before, and now we're kind of giving the keys to John and Jaren. They're going to be our franchise cornerstone, and we want them to be at the helm, right? And they're not going to have another player who's going to rip the ball away from them, or they're going to have to share minutes with or share the ball with in general, right? It's going to be the team instead of another player, right? And that's, again, we're going to see how it works out, but I think it's a lot better, right? Again, because you don't have this unevenness of kind of ball unselfishness, right? Or ball selflessness, sorry, that makes more sense, right? Like the ball is going to be shared among two players mainly, and then the team as a whole, right? And I think that's a lot better in my opinion. It really is. But again, it also comes down to individual players, right? And again, still roster construction, but I think individual performances, individual archetypes do matter, right? We can talk about progression of a player and how that kind of is important in terms of roster construction as well, right? Because again, like for example, the KD trade, right? Them taking away Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks, the Rockets, it pushes Amen Thompson to be the guard, or maybe not the guard, but understanding that they're taking the risk that he's going to turn out and pan out to be the player they want him to be, right? They're taking the risk on Jabari Smith. They want him to be the player they want. They want him to be the player that they want him to be, right? And Reed Shepard as well, right? They want these players to turn out like the images that they have of them in their head, the organization, right? And so what that does, again, it forces them to develop into that role and progress more. But sometimes the players don't progress like that, right? Like again, Amen Thompson, people, and again, this is for every athletic guard that enters the league. Oh, wait till he develops a jumper. Wait till he gets a jumper. That shit is just not possible, bro. Either he can shoot and has flashes of being a great shooter or being an okay shooter, or he just doesn't, right? And again, not to say that it can't happen. I know I just said it's not possible, but it doesn't happen that much. It just doesn't, right? Because again, if Amen Thompson developed a fucking Curry-like shooting, he'd be the best fucking player easily, right? I mean, we can talk about Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is like the only guy who came into the league and like, wait till this athletic motherfucker gets a jumper. And look at him with a jumper. He's averaging damn near like 28 points, right? But again, like then his mid-range fell off, right? He's not a great mid-range scorer now, right? But he can fucking shoot the lights out from three. Dark-skinned Curry. Right? But anyways, people think that the progress is like some linear thing. Not only that, but they think that they're working on that specific thing all the time, and it's just not true, right? And it doesn't come into fruition sometimes. And so I think because of that progress, it can limit roster construction as well. And yeah, and so I think that's very important for roster construction. And an example that I want to kind of bring to the table is Donovan Mitchell from the Cavs. Right, so I did some number diving. So the Cavs, right? Now, of course, there are nuances to this conversation because Darius Garland was injured and Evan Mobley was injured as well. So Donovan Mitchell had to have the ball in his hand more than anybody else because he's a star of the team, right? So he averaged 29.6 points on 44 field goal percentage in the playoffs. Shot 33.3 from three. Okay, great. Scoring wise, great. A little bit inefficient, but not too bad. I don't think field goal percentage. I think anything above. Well, it's not the best. It's not necessarily the best, right? I think his true shooting percentage is probably better, but I'm looking through the. Oh wait, advanced splits is right here. I'm looking through the NBA website to do it. It's such a great website. Honestly, like there's a lot to look at in terms of like finding what you want to find, but it's very good. But anyways, he had 57% true shooting percentage, which I think around league average, right? So again, like he's shooting at an averagely efficient clip, or an efficient average clip, fucking scoring 29 points, damn near 30, right? You can round it up to 30 in the playoffs, right? But they still lost. You have a player averaging that much and you still lost. Again, scoring isn't everything, right? That's for sure. It just isn't. But to be able to average that much and barely make it out the first round, kind of crazy. Now, again, not a diss to Donovan Mitchell either, but the reason I say or bring that up is because he has a 34.5 usage percentage, right? So he's scoring that much, which is great, right? He's scoring as he should be. But then it becomes this selfish kind of thing where it looks like he's playing selfish, right? It looks like he's not involving his team. The numbers kind of prove it. Again, we look at his assist numbers. Again, he has the ball 34.5% of the time. So his assist numbers in the playoffs as a guard, 3.9 or 4 assists, 2 turnovers. As a guard, right? Again, he's not necessarily a playmaking guard. He's a scoring first guard. So he doesn't necessarily have to be a playmaker, right? But the problem is, again, you have your guys down. You got to step up. You got to be the player who can not only score but initiate the offense, right? So you have to progress into being a better playmaker. But the problem is this has been going on for so long in his career, where it kind of comes back as he becomes a ball hog and come playoff time. Now again, in this context, this situation, I think it's a little bit less, I don't want to say less valid, because again the pattern is still there from damn near like the first playoff season to his first playoff run to now. But what I will say again, like you want him to become a better playmaker for the sake of initiating the team, right? That's what and that's what I mean. That's why Garner was the playmaker of the team, even though again he got injured unfortunately, right? But you want him to be the playmaker of the team because you want him to initiate offense as well. But he's not necessarily doing that, and so what does that become? It just becomes him shooting the lights out, becoming a great scorer, but it doesn't win them games, right? The game's about a bucket, 100% sure. But if you're not involving your teammates, or if they're not being it, and if your team is not very niche at one thing, then it doesn't work out. Again, OKC, other side, right? Again, we know Shea is a great scorer. He's not the best playmaker, but he's smart. He understands that he has gravity. They could pass and involve his team because, again, involving your team is what allows you to win. When your team is playing with synergy, it allows you to win because it's much harder to guard a team than one player, right? So, but again, that team, OKC, has the niche of their defense, right? It's hard to score on them. So even if Shea is being selfish with the ball, but sometimes it has happened in the playoffs and they lost games, they still have the defense, right? They can still rely on the defense. Or if he's being inefficient, they still have the defense, right? Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs do not have that kind of mattress to lean back on, or sofa, I guess, to lean back on, wall to lean back on, compared to OKC. So it kind of makes Donovan Mitchell become this player that's very much scoring first, even though we've had years where we wanted him to progress into being a better playmaker for the team. But again, it just does not happen. So I think when it comes to Donovan Mitchell, it's one of those examples of a player where it's like, oh, wait till this guy becomes a better playmaker. Wait till this guy is able to read closeouts better. Wait until he is able to involve his team better. And it just doesn't happen. And again, it's not like it can't happen. It's not like it's impossible. But it's hard. You can expect the player to progress and become better, but it's hard. It's hard, right, for them to change what they're normally used to, right? That's the whole point of Garland being the playmaker of the team. You want to make Donovan Mitchell be the scorer of the team. You want Garland to be the playmaker, right? But it does not work out. Again, obviously, those stats that season, the team was very much still. Again, like the nuance of that situation is that Garland was out and Evan Mobley was out as well, right? Like again, like that's totally fair, and it's why I don't want this to come off as hate towards Donovan Mitchell, because again, it's not at all. Like he's a top 3 guard for sure, easily, right? But yeah, that's in my opinion an example of a player that's kind of like they've been in the league for a while. They've gone to the playoffs for a bunch of times, and people want them to become and to progress and develop into something that they just have not been able to do so yet, right? Again, not that it's not possible, but it's hard. I'm trying to think of another example before I move on. About teams. I think Anthony Edwards is a great example of a player who has progressed, right? Like he's not the player that he's not going to be a playmaker. He's just not. But that doesn't mean you can't improve on that skill, right? He has gotten so much better at playmaking, got so much better at passing, and that's something that allows him to not only involve his team, but allow his team to get farther into the playoffs. And it's something that, again, it's great for not only himself, but the team. Because, again, if you're a great playmaker, then teams are going to understand that they have to guard you differently, right? They have to watch out for you being kind of spontaneous in your passes. But at the same time, it's hard to do that because, again, if you're a creative passer, for example, it's just like you're going to find loops and holes to get into, right? But not only that, but he's a great scorer as well. So, you have a great scorer being smart with the ball in your hand. It's a lot different. It's a lot harder to guard that, right? Because, again, he's going to get to the bucket. He's going to get to the paint and to the rim on will, at demand, on demand. But he's also going to be able to shoot the lights out. And now he knows how to fucking pass, right? When he's being double teamed or shown certain defensive actions, right? And I think again, like his progress has been something a beauty to watch. Like again, he's getting better and better every single year when it comes to that. And again, if he's not a champion, it's not his fault. I don't think so. At least unless turn selfish or whatever, right? But yeah, I think Anthony Edwards is a great example of a player who developed the way that, and it's honestly like an outlier development, to be honest. It's such a perfect kind of progression for him. It's really, honestly, it's a treat to watch, right? But that's roster construction. Again, other things matter as well, but that's just what I'll talk about for now. And my third thing, maybe not too important, but I think honestly is low key the most important, is health. Health matters. I think, and I think that ties in with a lot of things. Like it ties in with roster construction too, right? Because with again like the Grizzlies, right? Ja Morant getting injured, that team fell apart after that, and they played fine game 4, but it's like everybody knew they were gonna win game 4 because Ja Morant went out. There's a small or smidgen of hope that they win with Ja Morant in game 3, and again, we look like we were gonna win. If you won that game, then you come into game 4 with a lot more motivation, right? But then again, like it all goes away because Ja Morant was injured. The Cavs again, like they force Mitchell to be this playmaker, just doesn't work out because he's not that type of guy, that type of guard. And what does that do? Again, it makes the team fail because Garland and Mobley are injured. Again, not their fault. I'm not saying it's their fault or whatever. I'm just saying like it's a side effect of the injury, right? It turns these players into, it forces these players to turn into something they're not. I think honestly the only team that I can think of that played well through an injury so was OKC. Like fucking J-Dub at the 5 after Shet was injured. What the fuck? And iHeart was injured too. Like it was just disgusting what he was doing at the 5. But again, it's like it's crazy, right? In my opinion, health matters. Again, health really does matter. I think again, OKC was like one of the healthiest teams come playoff time. Obviously, we know fucking J-Dub was playing with a fucking injured not ankle, wrist, which is insane as fuck because he played the entire playoffs with his wrist hurting the way it did, which is insane. But it worked out anyways. He put his life on the line for that shit, and I respect it wholeheartedly. But yes, I think health matters so much for team success. Again, there's a, not every player is perfect. There's not a perfect player in the universe of basketball, right? There isn't. Like Jokic can still be a cone defensively. Shea can still be a cone defensively when he's still not a great playmaker, right? Giannis can still be sometimes lax on defense. Donovan Mitchell playmaking. Jalen Green inconsistent scoring nights. Kevin Durant not the best defender. There's certain things and certain knacks that players that are and there are things that people are like, oh, you gotta get better at this, you gotta get better at that, right? Because I think I think there's a certain demographic of players or fans who analyze the game and they want players to be perfect until they criticize every small thing. And I think again, like I don't think everything has to be criticized at such a microscopic level, right? Players are not always there's no perfect player in the league at all. There's just not, right? You're gonna find a player better than a certain player at something. At something, right? It could be a niche, like it could be a very small thing, right? But they're not always the best. Not only that, but they're just not perfect, right? This is not truthful. And I think again, like that matters, right? So because that no player can be perfect, which is again perfectly fine, but because of that, it forces players to do certain things when the other players are out. The players that kind of fulfill this role, and when they're out, the other player has to kind of allocate themselves into that role, but they just can't do it because they're not perfect. They're not a perfect fucking player. It's just a thing, right? This is the game of basketball, right? And honestly, life in general. But anyways, yeah, I think again, health matters very, very much, and I think if like there's a lot of what ifs, right? Again, Halliburton not injuring himself or not getting injured. Aaron Gordon not getting injured. Um, the Cavs, Mobley and Garland not being injured. Right? There's a lot of Stephen Curry not being injured. People don't talk about that too much. If Curry was not injured, I think that Tim series looks a lot differently. To be completely honest. But anyways, that's besides the point. But yeah, again, I think health matters. Health matters for teams, for overall team success, and health matters to make a good team a contender. Again, a contender team can be a contender team, but if they're not healthy, they're just a good team, and it's because they can't stay healthy. Again, not to say that that's always a player's fault. It just isn't. Like sometimes players are unlucky, and nothing you can do about it. But hope for the best for the next one, right? But anyways, I've been yapping for a while. I hope you enjoyed that topic. To be honest, I enjoyed making it up and looking up some stats and stuff like that, and speaking about it, because I think it's a again, it's such a vague topic that it's kind of important to the game, right? And I think it's a lot of answers to it, right? That can truly make it a worthwhile discussion. I think that's it for today's episode. Kind of want. I was gonna yap a little bit more, but I'm not going to. Recently, I got I got the Jaw 3s. The shades that came out yesterday. That shit sold out in like 10 fucking seconds, which is great. But I think people were complaining about like there were just not enough in stock, which is like kind of sucks, because I feel like Shay, being like the person he kind of is when it comes to like fashion and stuff like that, like I feel like it would make sense for him to have so much in stock. And they've been teasing that shoe for like damn near 3 months now, so that kind of stinks for people who wanted that shoe. But the Jaw 3s, got the New York versus New York colorway, and I got the price of admission ones. There's a new one that came out today actually. I think the Call 12 ones, and those are so fucking sick. I'm not a mismatch guy, but I love the colors on them, and I like the darker one more than I do the yellow one, because I don't really like yellow too much, but I love the darker color. It reminds me of the Digimon duo. I forgot their names, but like the main characters, and they're like Digimon. Like it reminds me of them so much, because it literally is like their colors. But yeah, and I haven't played into them yet, but I'm really excited to. I want to play with them inside first before I take them outside, if I do take them outside. I might get the second ones, or I might buy the Grizzly colorway. I don't know when it'll come out, but that colorway is so fucking tough too. But my Lord and Savior John Morant. All right. Anyways, that was it. What the hell? That was it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any opinions, comment them down. I would love to hear your opinions. I really would love to hear what you guys have to say about what I talk about, or any topic that you would want to bring up, and maybe we'll talk about in the next episode if you have anything you want to talk about either. But yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.